Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOonline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. You know, one question I ask every guest on Everyday Martial Artist is about their favorite martial arts book. And there's never been one quite like Martial Theory by Steve Perlman, described as the art of war for the martial arts. Martial Theory helps any martial artist or instructor take their understanding and teaching to the next level. And at martialtheoryU.com, you'll find a global community with instructor groups, Q&A with Steve, live events, and demonstrations to help you apply martial theory directly to your training. It's not just a book, it's a movement. Find Martial Theory on Amazon, and when you join martialtheoryU.com, use discount code EverydayMA for 20% off. That's under $20 a month for life. That's martialtheoryU.com, code EverydayMA. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today is a lifelong martial artist, instructor, entrepreneur, and airman who has dedicated over 3 decades to the study and teaching of martial arts. Originally from Philadelphia, he began training in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in 1995, a journey that would take him from local mats to international recognition as one of the art's most respected American-born practitioners. He's a 5th-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a 4th-degree black belt in Gunji Taiho Jitsu, a 2nd-degree black belt in Kodokan Judo, 1st-degree black belt in Luta Livre, and a Shodan in Kendo, and holds additional rankings in Yoshitsune Combat Jiu-Jitsu and Aikido. As a co-founder of the Jiu Jitsu Global Federation, alongside Master Rickson Gracie and Professor Carlos Gama, he's played an instrumental role in preserving and promoting the combat effectiveness and philosophical roots of Jiu-Jitsu around the world. He's also the creative mind behind the innovative Tatami Air training surface, a design that has redefined professional mat technology for martial artists everywhere. Known for his articulate teaching style, deep historical insight, and captivating seminars, he's become a teacher of teachers, inspiring generations of martial artists to pursue both technical mastery and personal development through Jiu-Jitsu. Please welcome my guest today, little Tony Pacenski. How you doing today, Tony?
I'm doing well, Brian. Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, thank you. I truly appreciate it. I appreciate anytime a guest is willing to give time and do this. I appreciate it, because without you guys, the show would be nothing. You know, people would not be tuning in to listen to me talking to myself very often. So I really, really appreciate this.
Very good. Let's get started.
Cool.
I'm excited.
Well, what we do with all my guests is I want to know, I mentioned you've been doing this for, 3 decades, but I want to know where that started, how it started, where that first interest in the martial arts came from, what that first spark was that kicked off your martial arts journey.
Yes. VHS tapes, my first rental.
Nice.
In the 80s, Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon.
Awesome.
Fist of Fury, Chinese Connection. So I was a big Bruce Lee fan. And then as I got older, I understood that he was a Wing Chun specialist in the beginning, and I got an Inside Kung Fu subscription. I just wanted to study everything Jeet Kune Do, and I was still a teenager.
Nice.
And the local Taekwondo school got my start in martial arts at 14 years old.
Oh, really? Okay. And do you happen to remember what system, what Kwan was, what part of Taekwondo that was?
Yes, it was Mudu Kwan.
Very cool. See, me at 10 years old, my first style was Mudu Kwan Tong Sudo. Kind of sister arts there, very, very similar and stuff. And that's kind of cool. And was that something, someone recommend that school? Did you research, did you check out a few different schools, or was that your only option? Kind of how did you pick that school?
There were more options. I figured that was something that I wanted to do, Taekwondo with the kicking. I saw it as a good start, and I enjoyed it. And around that time, that's with the Inside Kung Fu subscription, I started to see Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and I signed away for the in-action tapes and the basic training. And what happened is that it got me on the Gracie Academy's mailing list, and they sent me out a flyer to join Helsing Gracie in Atlantic City for a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu seminar.
Okay.
And I had already watched the VHS tapes and was excited. I just wanted to do Jiu-Jitsu. And around that time, early we always would have wrestling camps. And I understood watching the UFC, like, yes, this is the clinch and the ground fighting, and this will totally make sense. And then that Wild West era in 1993. 94, 95 in the United States and essentially around the world. It was a big awakening in martial arts community.
Okay.
So it just said, call this number in Center City, Philadelphia. Call Steve. So I did.
Nice. Okay. How long were you at that Taekwondo school before you went to that seminar?
I believe it was like white belt to yellow belt, maybe a year. It wasn't that long. I saw jiu-jitsu and I go, that's what I want to do.
Okay.
Somehow. And then when the telephone call to Steve Maxwell, who was my first professor of jiu-jitsu, still friends to this day, they just said, we have affiliate of the Gracies from California, and Steve Maxwell flies out there all the time, spending tens of thousands of dollars for privates, and he's a purple belt and he's certified to teach Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And I was like, okay, I'm coming down. Wow. And I just got my driver's license.
Okay.
But my mom was really concerned for me to drive down to Philadelphia. So she was like, I'll give you some money for the train. And there I was. I just fell in love and never looked back. I was training all summer. And it was the first day we watched UFC 1, and everyone's watching the Ken Shamrock heel hook one of the fighters. And I was just looking around. I'm like, everybody's thinking like how I am, like so excited about this UFC and jiu-jitsu. And that was it. I just trained every day. And 10th grade, 11th grade, by 12th, my senior year, I convinced my guidance counselor that I wanted to do work study. So all I had to do was go to English class and philosophy class and gym. And then every day I was released to go do jiu-jitsu down
awesome.
The city. Because he's like, this is what you want to do with your life. We have this program for you. So my whole senior year, I got to train 2 days. I got the afternoon training and then the evening training.
So did you ever go back and thank that guidance counselor decades later?
No. What a great experience. Yeah. And then during my 11th grade year, that summer where you still have the senior year coming, I took my first plane trip to California with Steve and Philip Migueris. Wow. And I stayed in Torrance, California for about a week. And I said, the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu instructors training, that's exactly what I want to do. So that was my dream from 11th grade on. And I was going to do anything I could to get accepted into the program, save up money, and then eventually take my one-way ticket to California.
So one more quick question on the Taekwondo. During that like roughly year you were there, did you ever do competition? Did you ever get involved in like tournaments for Taekwondo?
No, it was just learning the katas, doing sparring. And I remember sparring one of the female black belts, and she kept closing the distance and getting really close. So that was my first intuition of distance management and understanding timing of the attack. Okay. So I think it was a good start. Yeah. And then with the wrestling and then seeing the jiu-jitsu, it all came together. And then once I start seeing the challenge matches in Philadelphia and how all the magazines kind of started publicizing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and that whole curve, I was like, okay, I'm in the right place at the right time, and this is exciting.
Nice. And you mentioned wrestling. Did you actually wrestle in high school?
No, I only did camps. I was unfortunately, I would get a lot of skin. I developed a lot of skin rashes from wrestling. Okay. And I got shingles as well. It's like I was exposed to chicken pox on the mats. So it's kind of like hesitant just because of the skin. Yeah. And my friends in our neighborhood, we were good at baseball, football, and basketball. I was a really good baseball player, so I just kind of gravitated towards that.
Very cool. That first trip to California, how long did you spend out there during that time?
It was 1 week, and there are people that I met that at that time that still train to this day. And I got to see the California weather in Los Angeles. It was the late 90s, like 96, 97. Wow. What a great time. California cheeseburger. and I saved up money, and I competed in Hawaii, and I won in Honolulu. So I really thought that, as a blue belt, this is going to be good. If I can just get out here and live here full time, I can live this dream. So, you graduate high school, I saved up money. I went to a seminar with Royce Gracie, and he was explaining, he's like, well, how much money do you want to save up? And I had this like mystical number of $20,000. He's like, you don't need $20,000. Just get a ticket. The next program's next month. It starts up, and, talk to Steve. You're in. We trust Steve's recommendation. So I came back from the seminar, and my mom and dad picked me up at the airport in Philadelphia. And I said, Mom, Dad, I'm moving to California in 2 weeks. And they said, okay. They supported
Really?
it. And I bought a one-way ticket, and I had $1,000 in my pocket. And I went to the program. I went out there and didn't have a car. I went to the Goodwill and got a bike, fixed the tires. The bike was like $5.
Mm-hmm.
Went to the academy. I paid my tuition, which was, I was going to do the part-time program.
Okay.
So it was like $300 a month for tuition.
Wow.
And they said, well, find a job, get some, everybody kept saying, if you need something to eat, let us know. And I was still a teenager. I was 18, 19 years old. So I was still very young, baby face. And the first 30 minutes that I was in Los Angeles, I stayed at this hotel, and I had a letter of recommendation from a couple of the students from Philadelphia. And one of it was a Taiwanese lady who was visiting her friend at the counter. And I said, oh, I'm Tony Pacenski. I'm looking for a room to rent. And I knew that I had to stay within like the Redondo Beach, Torrance area. And I pulled out this piece of paper, and I was like, this is my character. And the lady like kind of looked at it, and she said, okay, I have a room for rent. We can go see it tomorrow. And I said, let's see it now. So I threw my stuff down in this hotel that I stayed for the night. And within 45 minutes, I'm already in this lady's car. And when I put my stuff down in that hotel, that's everything that I owned. It was all my gis, everything, all my books, everything. And she said, you can stay here if you can help my son with English. He was a high school student. Okay. So then I paid her. We negotiated the rent for the month. There was another $300. So I was just kind of going through my money, right? And then I just started job hunting. And the long story short is, within a couple days, I had already set up a job. I was working, and I worked for 2 weeks before the program started. I had already paid my next month and my next tuition for the next month. And on that first day, I got to meet all my class. We started training, and a lot of the adults were like, shouldn't you be in college right now? And I said, that's a good question. If I was in school right now, I'd be thinking about being right here on the mats. So they're like, okay, that's a pretty good answer.
Nice.
So that was my start.
I lived in California in 96, 97, and one of my best friends out there was from Torrance. Who knows? Maybe I walked past you while you were riding your bike sometime or something. Small world.
It was a very small world.
That's cool. But just curious, what'd you get for a job when you were out there?
I was like, I'll do anything. I worked as a busboy at a Mexican restaurant, and then they moved me to like food server / bartender. But yeah, I maintained that job for 2 years while I was out there before I started university and college.
Very cool. And of course, being you from California, you got to ask, do you love In-N-Out Burger still?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Nice.
I was just in California recently, in LA and San Diego, and that's definitely one of the first stops.
Yeah, same with me. Anytime I go anywhere, if there's an In-N-Out, I'm going. And my favorite burger was a place it was in La Habra. It was called Imperial Burger. Local burger joint, best burger I ever had in my life. And it's still there. I've looked it up. They actually have 2 locations now. So next time I go out there, I got to hit In-N-Out Burger and Imperial Burger. So
same thing we had in Hermosa and Redondo Beach. We have Rod's. So Rod's charcoal burger.
I've heard of Rod's.
It's a famous.
Yeah, never been there, but I've heard of it. So that's cool. And so when you first started, when you were still in Philadelphia training, did you get into the jiu-jitsu competition then, or did that come when you moved to California?
Yes, that's a good question. When we started jiu-jitsu, so it was 1995, and we were learning the self-defense, like the Gracie curriculum, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu curriculum, Helsing Gracie, Hoist Gracie, Elio Gracie, Horion Gracie. So like Elio's sons. And Steve Maxwell would teach well for the self-defense techniques. Then he was like a wrestler, so he would teach us wrestling takedowns, and we were learning the Vale Tudo, how to use jiu-jitsu for self-defense and for fighting. Okay. And then after about 10 months training jiu-jitsu, I got exposed to the competition. So then we were here are the rules, here are the points. And I was just like, okay, well, that's another way to do it. But I had the gi on from May and then in June. So I had 1 month of gi training, and then the whole summer from June to September, we trained no gi. So I was like getting pretty good at just doing submission grappling, the jiu-jitsu without the gi. And then in the fall, we put the gi back on, and there was one white belt. He was smaller than me. I was 135 pounds. He was an adult that was like kind of shorter than me. And he put me during the summer, he would tap me in the gi in that first month, but during the summer, I kind of like was neutral. I couldn't beat him, but he was not tapping me. I remember he put me in a guillotine choke for 45 minutes. Wow. And I kept countering, and it took me 45 minutes to get my head out. But by the time I got my head out, he was exhausted. So I guess that was a moral victory for me, or at least a win, Yeah. But it really taught me about the patience of the technique. And then in the fall, we put the gi back on. He put me in a collar choke. So at that moment, I was like, well, I want to learn how to do jiu-jitsu correctly. I want to know how to stop that. I want to know how to do that. So we put the gi on, and I never had the I like no gi or I like gi. It was just like whatever we were practicing, I wanted to get technical and try to overcome.
Okay. And do you remember your first ever competition you did?
Yes. I would say my first real competition was like a challenge match
Okay.
with a Sambo guy.
Oh,
And I
really?
say this because we always had challenge matches in Philadelphia at Maxercise. So I would watch, I was a teenager, and I'd watch men come in there and do like a real fight, like a Gracie challenged fight, grappling matches, style versus style. And it was exciting. And there was a Sambo guy that came in with the shorts and the red jacket, and he was throwing people all around. And he had went with one of our blue belts. And when I say one of our blue belts, we only had like maybe 3 blue belts. Steve Maxwell was a unicorn as a purple belt,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just a bunch of students. We were all white belts, but we were doing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and we would do very well against other styles that didn't understand grappling and things like that. So here's a guy that is a Sambo guy,
Yeah.
and he was in shape. Like I said, I was probably at my 10th month of Jiu-Jitsu, and I was maybe like the third person that he went with. And I put my hand in his collar and I pulled guard. I'm in the guard, and I went to go for the choke. He blocked the choke, and I went right into an arm lock, and then I got him.
Nice.
It's the first person I ever tapped, and he was great because he was not one of us.
Yeah.
So it was like, I'm almost one for the academy.
That's cool.
That made me think of moves in two and how to put things together and that. And then we had an in-house tournament, different jiu-jitsu and judo places and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu representatives, if there were any, mainly in New Jersey and New York, like the Henzo Gracie type of academies.
Mm-hmm.
And I went against some adult, and he choked me from inside the guard.
Okay.
So that was my first experience. But by the second time, next year, I had, like I said, I was already, I got the sport I went to blue belt. I started winning matches. When I went to Hawaii, I won a tournament. I was like, I want to do this. I'm a really good competitor. I have the youth and the speed. And I was going pretty well with competitions. And then my mom, one day I came back with a medal, and she said, so what's next? Because I had already been to California. I've learned how to teach jiu-jitsu, and it was like, you're going to keep chasing medals or you're going to go to university. So my mom, the way she said it was like, it's time to study. So I believed her, and I went to school.
And what did you decide to go to school for?
Education.
Okay.
I wanted to learn how the theory of learning and teaching and pedagogy. So I'm still studying to this day.
Nice.
I'm in a doctorate program, organizational leadership, education. It's been well worthwhile.
So you mentioned that you learned to teach jiu-jitsu. Where did that interest come from? Was everyone learning how to teach it? Did you specifically say, I want to learn how to teach it? Kind of what led you to the teaching side of martial arts?
The teaching for me was, so Steve Maxwell at the time was married to DC Maxwell, and she was a certified instructor under Horion for the self-defense for women program. And they would just grab me because, I was a teenager. I guess it was, they don't have to pay me too much money or whatever, but I was like the perfect size for the assailant, statistically, whatever that means. But I had the smile, and I had the good personality. So I was the assistant. I was like, well, I would like to learn how to teach this. I would love, and then as I'm doing jiu-jitsu, people started coming to me for answers. So I had these college students and adults of all shapes and sizes just coming to me for questions about teaching, like how to do the moves and things like that. So to me, that was very powerful because I had a lot of learning disabilities growing up, and no one ever came to me for, how to do things I felt like we're in a little science laboratory, right? Mm-hmm. And when I saw the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu instructors program, I was like, this is made for me. This is exactly what I want to do. And then, going out there and be learning how to teach correctly, that's what I wanted to do the most. And teaching children, it was like, this makes sense. So it was very easy for me to pick a major after I had done a liberal arts education. And then I go, okay, I want to focus on this because I can relate everything to teaching jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
I built on that knowledge of whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
And Horion Gracie he was so charismatic. His methodology of teaching jiu-jitsu was so good. And I learned all those tricks. I learned the formulas, and we really spent a lot of time learning how to teach jiu-jitsu. And when I look back at it, he was probably one of the best educators I've ever had in my life, even in all academia.
Wow.
So
okay.
that was the initial start.
Nice. So think back to maybe one of those first few classes where they had you start, help teach, to now you're still teaching, you're still doing seminars. You're over all those years, what do you think has changed the most about your teaching style?
Yes, I can answer this quickly. So, of course, learning how to teach and presenting presentations and all the things, all the tricks that you can have all that.
Yeah.
So I have had the experience. So I never got to train with Rickson Gracie out of all
Oh,
these years, like
really?
about 15 years in. And then I went to a seminar in Torrance, California. I was living in California,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw Rickson, and he was back from Brazil, and he was talking about all these invisible theory and connection, and he was doing the same moves as all his brother, but everything was different.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, this is, yeah, I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to train with him again, but it was very moving just on a jiu-jitsu point of view. Cause I was a black belt at that time already. And
Mm-hmm.
I had been to Brazil. I've done a lot, right?
Yeah.
Competed at the highest levels of jiu-jitsu and books, DVDs, instructionals. My name got around the world a couple of times by the time I had that. So it was basically like, okay, I can teach. I was in my mind.
Yeah.
So how it all came to be was I wanted to start a federation of jiu-jitsu that was based on education, not just sport and the competition,
Yeah.
and a place for it to come to go. And this is right around when they had Metamoris, where Chrome Gracie competed in Metamoris in California.
Mm-hmm.
So Rickson Gracie was in town, and I got his email from one of my instructors on the BJJ Revolution team, Foca Fernandez, Master Foca. And he just said, tell Rickson I said hi. And I messaged Rickson Gracie and I said, I just want to get 5 minutes of your time. I want to talk about ideas of a federation. So he was staying in Santa Monica, and he was like, okay, you get 5 minutes. So I drove to Santa Monica with all my ideas. And I said, so Rickson, how much time do I have today? He's like, you got 5 minutes.
He was serious.
And yeah, he was
Yeah.
really serious. So I just sat down. We went outside, and we were like kind of looking at the ocean. And I told him a little bit about myself, what I would like to do. And then that conversation went over an hour.
Wow.
He was okay. We walked back into the condominium, and I was through the door. And then he's like, okay, so he's walking through the door. And he said, well, you can meet my partner in Brazil. And I just like stopped right in front of Rickson. I was like, Rickson. Is it Rickson Gracie? But I like idolize the guy. He's Rickson Gracie to me.
Yeah.
That's what I always look for. And I just said, Rickson, I can always meet your partner. I can talk on the phone with your partner. I was like, I want to meet him. He said, okay, Tony, I can feel your heart. And he put his hand up. He's like, I feel your heart. He's like, he's in Brazil. I'll be down there next month. You should come down. I said, I already have my ticket. I'm going to Brazil anyway. So it was perfect.
Nice.
So he had 24 hours to think about it. The next day, he sent me a very short email, and he just said, we have the same mission, and I believe that you're the right guy, something like that. And it just made my eyes tear in the back, because I had been training, studying, building this federation, writing every night endlessly. My eyes would get very dry, and then that email just kind of cemented it. So I went to the supermarket, and I'm holding this can of soup in my hand. I just stood there for maybe 5 minutes. I'm like, this is going to happen. This is really going to happen, and and a selfish aspect, I'm like, I'm going to be able to train with Rickson. From Rickson, I'm going to learn directly from Rickson Gracie, not one of his students, not somebody that summarized his ideas. I feel like I hit the jackpot in terms of learning his technique. So we fast forward to this. Now we started Jiu-Jitsu Global Federation, we're building it.
Mm-hmm.
What would become the Jiu-Jitsu Global Federation. So I'm having a lot of meetings with Rickson, and we're becoming friends and learning about life, the whole thing. And then one of the days we had a meeting, and then we're on the mats in our jeans and our t-shirts, and he's talking about teaching pedagogy. And I said, well, you have to be able to film, Rickson. I know you don't do that. It's never been part of you don't want, but I basically convinced him to do instructionals. And he's like, okay, we'll do it. I'm not going to tell you how I did that, but he was like, I think it's right to do that for the right people. They should be able to, learn this jiu-jitsu. I said, so then what is the Rickson Gracie teaching methodology? And he says, what? Like, okay, Tony, you teach me a move. So here I am, master's degree in education. I was a school teacher. In my mind, I could teach just like Elio Gracie's methodology, and I did everything. I picked a move, a headlock with a punch. I went through the whole sequence. I was tapping my fingers. I'm setting up the problem, giving the solution without words. I was showing the safety tip. He said, well, Tony, that was a really good presentation. But when it came to do the move on him, Rickson just pulled his arm out. And he said, it doesn't matter how well the presentation is if the move doesn't work. So then he says, do it to me. And then I couldn't get my arm out.
Nice.
So this led to basically as a black belt, he broke it down to, I'm now in an introduction class again, going over every move, maybe 3 or 4 moves that we did that day. And he made me, I exhausted all my variations. And he's like, well, Tony, the move doesn't work. That's where I learned Rickson Gracie's, not only his jiu-jitsu approach, but also his teaching pedagogy. And it was about showing and teaching people what they need to learn versus what they want to learn, or what you want to show them. Because that's what I want to do. I was always like presenting information, like anticipating students' questions, putting it all together, having a great framework. Hey, what about this question? That's just me teaching what I want them to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can grab a black belt or someone that has been studying for a long time and show them a hole in their game, they're going to value it a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. In the intro, I mentioned your black belts in multiple styles. When did the cross training begin? Is that something? Did someone recommend you seek out other styles? Was that something that came from within you that you just wanted to expand more? Kind of how did that start?
To me, I had a lot of exposure in living in Southern California, and being around like Maxercise was we would take everybody in. Like if you were a judo guy or karate, I was very open to all that.
Mm-hmm.
My mind was like, okay, show me how. I always wanted to learn how to kick like a Muay Thai, like the round kick. So I was always open to that. And in California, we were exposed to like Filipino martial arts, Krav Maga, all kinds of things. But that's just learning techniques and maybe some ideas. The Air Force, my first duty assignment was in Tampa, Florida, and MacDill Air Force Base. And I was there for a 4 to 5 year period. That's where we put together a lot of the arresting technique, like Taiho Jutsu. And then my next duty assignment was in Tokyo, Japan for 4 years. The moment I landed in Tokyo and got to spend 4 years there training, I was exposed to anything that I wanted. It was like a candy land. So I immediately signed up for a dojo for judo. I found a Kendo and then also Aikido. And then when I started training Aikido, that led to Iaido. So in a 4 year period, I arrived in Tokyo as a Ikkyo, because all of in judo. So I was like a first brown, and the dojo that I was at, I trained for 1 year. And at the end of that 1 year, I started taking my exams at the Kodokan for the kata, Nagi no kata, and I got my Shodan certificate from the Kodokan. That was my first rank in Japan.
Okay.
And I would always train judo like twice a week. It was such a great thing. And then I started doing some Aikido at the beginning there, but it wasn't the Aikido that I wanted to do. I wanted to do Nishio Sensei's approach, was like a synthesized idea of the sword, the Jo, and the Aikido. So I found Shisha Sensei, and it was like perfect. This is exactly the type of Aikido that I want to learn. And he exposed me to like Iaido for the 15 kata. So that's like my dream is to go back to Japan and just train with Shisha Sensei.
Okay.
Because it's such an amazing art, how it's all put together. And, Aikido is very peaceful.
Yeah.
So, and then while this is happening, I had to essentially convince my wife to do all this training. So she was like, you're going to do Jiu-Jitsu, you're going to do Judo, that's it, 3 times a week. But I ended up training like 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I just kept going. And, now we have Kendo on base, the Kendo club. And then over that 4 year period, I was able to go from knowing nothing about Kendo to getting a Shodan from the All Japan Kendo Federation. So I love Kendo.
Nice.
And the idea of like how fast it is and the distance and the practice of it. And then also I'm getting to study a lot of like arresting technique with Soke Miller, and learning about like Hakaru Jiu-Jitsu, like different types of Jiu-Jitsu. It was all there. And then at the very end, if I only trained Aikido with like Nishio Sensei's curriculum, it would have taken me 4 years just to get Shodan.
Wow.
Because it was so hard to learn all the different aspects of his curriculum. But Shisha Sensei got me from not knowing any Aikido to 4th Kyu.
Oh, wow.
And it's been an amazing experience. That to me is real cross training, because it wasn't like, I want to like learn a couple moves and I'm really passionate. I love karate.
Yeah.
No, it's like, no, I studied, I got injured, I competed, I went there. That's to me is the real cross training. And and it's hard because it changes your perceptions on things.
Yep.
And and then the Budo timings are different. So you're doing Judo, you're doing Kendo, Aikido. It's a struggle, because even if you're an experienced martial artist, you have to learn the timing of the Budos and stick. And then you're in Japan. And Japan doesn't have a lot of variation. You do exactly the same thing all the time, do exactly like the instructor is teaching you. You do the repetitions, you go through the winter, you go through the summer, it's hot, it's cold, it's freezing, you get injured, you work around it, but you're not in the United States, you don't have this, I'm an American, I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah.
So I had to also learn that about being in a different Japanese culture.
That is cool. Sounds like a very, very fun 4 years over there training.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't, it's not that I didn't get injured a lot, although I did. I actually got sick a lot
Oh,
because I was always working out, training, you're in the trains. So I always think like, okay, you get sick like once a year, maybe twice a year. I was getting sick every quarter.
wow.
So that was, when I look back at it, it was, yeah, I was always getting sick. But
Dang.
man, I really learned a lot and
Yeah,
had great experiences.
that is cool. I didn't say this in your bio, but it looked like you've also written some and released some books. What kind of led to that? What kind of led to the love of writing and wanting to share knowledge that way?
This is all before AI. Now things are a little different.
Yeah.
You can put your ideas and then boom. But when I decided to go towards the Air Force, Rickson was like, okay, that's you can continue the mission. We're on the same page. Everything like I support this. This is good. And I said, well, Rickson, I've got to spend this type of quality time with you for all this time now. I would like to write about it. Can I have your blessing to write about this journey, this invisible path?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, sure. So that was it. And I was like, if I'm going to write a book, I want to write about my experience of being with Rickson, starting the Jiu Jitsu Global Federation, and the ideas of Rickson on paper. So something that's like theory and principles, not a book of techniques.
Yeah.
So that was, and then I was like, okay, I have some time to write this before I ship out. And I basically traveled from California all the way back to Philadelphia. I went through the South, did seminars, 25-year anniversary type of thing.
Okay.
And then, 20th anniversary. And then I'm just writing along the way. And then when I got out of basic training and got to my first tech school in the Air Force, I tried to finish it up. So that was my first book. And I figured if I could have a lot of time to sit down and write, I'm going to do this. So the next thing was when you go to the Air Force, we did like 15 minutes of combatives.
Mm-hmm.
And then people were like, in basic training, that's it? That's martial arts? I was like, that was not combatives. That was like 2 or 3 moves. And believe me, so all the wrestlers in our basic training, they were just like laughing. But when I got to my first duty station, I had time to sit down and start. I didn't think there was any exposure for the Air Force to do combatives. They had on base, they had modern Army combatives.
Mm-hmm.
So I was training with that team or that crew of people. And then at night, I was writing my own, what I would think would become like an Air Force combatives. And then in 2018, the Air Force AFI, the Air Force instructions changed to allow all different airmen to be exposed to the Air Force combatives program. And then I got an email to come to Colorado to become like instructor's training and I arrived with my little book. Well, it was actually a thick book on combatives. I handed it to the Air Force Academy liaison there. So they're like, no, we have a curriculum, and they showed me it. I got exposed to it, and I was like, okay, well, I guess my book is not needed. But when I got back and started teaching Air Force combatives, it was all the security forces that started, well, how do you do this for a wresting technique? And I go, well, there's Taiho Jitsu, but it hasn't been revived since the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And this is before I even went to Japan.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. I want to try to like refine a wresting technique. And it became a hot topic as well in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what would lead to. And I was like, well, if we're going to have a Taiho Jitsu system, it has to be pressure tested. It has to be not just like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu centric. I want to do Filipino martial arts, and I want to have like the judo and the rest. I want to put it all together. And then that was the laboratory for the 5-year period to develop what will become military wrestling technique, Gunji Taiho Jitsu.
Okay.
So that led to more books and writing all about it and videotaping it. So that was like my method of operation for writing. There's always something for, structuring your instructional DVD. All that comes out. And then at the end, someone gives you a nice testimony and they actually got it. They watched the videos, they learned, they sent an email, and they appreciate it. And they were able to pick up what the thesis was. So that was always my payoff when doing these types of instructionals and now the books and, online training.
Okay. So when you finally decide to retire from the Air Force, do you want to open your own school? Do you know what the plan is?
I don't know.
Okay.
I always think sometimes when you travel to have like a nice little posh little dojo that's, you visualize what it will be. So I do think of that, but I want to have a place where people can practice Budo.
Okay.
So that's I think my long-term, and that's my favorite now with like, I have my home here. I have my garage. I have my tatami air mats, everything. And it's just having a couple students that love Budo. And that's hard to teach in the United States to me. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Okay. Nice. Well, you mentioned the tatami air mats. Talk about that journey. Talk about where the idea came from and kind of how you launched that.
Sure. So when you get your first duty station in the Air Force, I was always around. I always had my mats. since I was a teenager, I had mats. I had like jigsaw puzzle mats. I had all the different rollout mats.
Yep.
And then I get to MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa. I'm like, where are the mats? Where are the mats? And I found the combative guys, the Army combative guys. So they had mats. I still didn't have mats. And then, of course, you can go off base and find an academy, but I didn't have mats.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working with a coworker in an airman on a KC-135, and we're inside the fuselage. And he gets a telephone call and it says, "Hey, get your stuff. You're gonna do a temporary duty in England." And he's like, "Okay, let me call my wife." So I look at this guy, young airman, and he's like, I go, "This can happen?" He's like, "Yeah, we just get a call. We got to go." And I was like thinking, I'm never going to be around my mats. I won't have mats. So this was my problem to solve, my problem statement. And then I spent 2 weeks thinking about what was the best mats that were out there. And at the time, to me, it was like if you can put two mats together and have 10-foot space and the flex connect, so you don't need mat tape. But I'm like, they're too hard to carry.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend of mine, well, what's better than that? And I was like, the only way you can do that is if you can like inflate it and put it into a bag. So that was it.
Wow.
So then I'm looking at air mattresses and I'm like, well, if you can't have an air mattress because it'll pop, it'll explode. They can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I started contacting surf companies and I was like, I would like to get an inflatable paddleboard.
Okay.
So they were like, well, yeah, we can do whatever you want. I'm from California, and now I'm in Tampa. We don't have waves, but I need a paddleboard. And then one guy was like, so what do you want? How long you want to be? I said, I wanted to be 10 by 10. And he said, what are you trying to do? And then he had all these great questions. And I go, all your questions are great if we were working together and we were going into business. I go, just send me the mat. And he said, what? I said, send me the paddleboard. And there was my prototype. So then from there, I started to do the bag, and my wife was a flight attendant. She's like, I can't lift the bag. So we redesigned the bag 7 different times. So it was a backpack with wheels and it could fit all the equipment. And, now this year we're heading into our 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
And I can't wait for 2026 because I've taken on a partner, and let's just say Tatami Air is going to be everywhere.
Okay.
But it took 10 years. And
Yeah.
that's how things happen in life. You work really hard for 10 years and then things happen overnight.
Yeah. So during that 10 years, has the design changed quite a bit in those 10 years, or was it before the 10 years where it changed and refined?
It's been refined a little bit more, just kind of overcoming little problems, like with my own, like I'm using it, or like people have questions, and then, it's different sizes. The biggest mat I ever sold Tatami Air was 50 by 50.
Wow.
Like that's a massive mat.
Yeah.
But, somebody wanted it, and let's do it. But I do like the 10 by 10 space. And after you get past all the bells and whistles, it's totally different. When a mat is made, that's as hard as it's ever going to be, or as soft as it's ever going to be. With the Tatami Air, you can change the stiffness. You can make it soft, hard, hybrid.
Oh.
And in terms of like the hardest thing in judo is to take nagi komis over and over, like boom, you get up, throw them again, get up, throw them again. So it's like crash pad. Because on a solid tatami, it's hard to be 40 years old and keep getting up and then having some young guy keep throwing you.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, let me put down a crash pad so I can save my back and my shoulder. With Tatami Air, I will take those nagi komis.
Really?
Yes. So people you have to just feel it. It's a totally different deal.
Mm-hmm.
There's no slippage because the surface is like a paddleboard.
Wow.
That was one of the problems, like when we got the mats at the Jiu-Jitsu Global Federation. We had the mats come out and it got really wet, and then Rickson and I were slipping and sliding all over the mats.
Oh, okay.
So he's like, Tony, these mats are not good. And I was like, well, we got to get back to our supplier and get a different variation because I can't train on this.
Mm-hmm.
So that I've always had a problem with mats and slippage and bacteria, as like we said earlier.
Yeah.
So I know what the problems are. It was just exciting to be like on this new, and then you look at the mats, how important they are for grappling and how they have changed over the years. You start going into history, and it's space and how the mats were designed, and that revolutionized the martial art because of the training equipment.
Yeah. That is so cool. Would you ever consider going on like something like a Shark Tank?
Believe me, what I mean, that would be great. But what I envisioned in the beginning, and then I was always a big fan of the magazines, right?
Yep.
Like, who was on the cover of Black Belt magazine? What was being, and this is before I understood the industry.
Yeah.
I would see where are the books that are out there, who are the people that are on the covers, who are getting interviewed, what books, the instructional tapes where they were out there, and then you'd always have like the big players, and they were always like Olympians or something in judo.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike Swain, I got to meet Mike Swain. I had meetings with Mike Swain. I've been in industries with Mike Swain. Jimmy Pedro.
Yep.
Like these are all like the people I always wanted to work with and like be part of, and the different jiu-jitsu guys in Brazil. And it's like at one point in time, I had a Rolodex, and I was like, people had to go through me to get to the president of the Jiu-Jitsu Global Federation. So I got to know so many people in the jiu-jitsu space and in the grappling space. And I always thought back to those times where I was like on the magazines, what it would be. So for my own project later of Tatami Air and what that would look like. And to me, it's like, I want the new generation to be on that picture, the new stars. So it's going to happen. We're going to create stars with Tatami Air and the collaborations. And it's good. It all has its place.
That's awesome.
But there's still more books to write. There's more things to do. Like I said, I had my dream to go back to Japan and train with Shishiya Sensei, and try to get to that Shodan in Aikido, which people will never fully understand in the United States.
Yeah.
To me, like when they ask me, they're like, "But you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. You're Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. You're Judo. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" I was like, "Well, why are you training?" And then it's in the United States, it's like a lot of fighting. I want to do self-defense. I want to fight. I want to do all this stuff. But that evolves and changes as people start getting into martial arts. They're understanding it's like a self-improvement thing.
Yeah.
So then it gets into the idea of the Jutsu versus a Do and how things are done in the United States. And it makes a lot of sense when you're walking around Tokyo at night and it's so peaceful. Aikido can totally live in that space. It makes sense.
Nice.
But the ideas of Aikido can go further when it comes into like, I think everything that I learned in Japan, it all led to understanding the sword. And that's Nishio Sensei's curriculum is so amazing because it teaches you about the killing sword and the life-giving sword. You give someone a chance to live or an opening instead of just crippling them. And then you get into the techniques, and it doesn't matter if you're holding a wooden sword, a stick, a jo, or the empty hand. You're expressing the life-giving sword, which is a lot different than, I'm just going to throw this guy, I'm going to pin them, I'm going to win the match. Or I'm going to have a kendo match, and I'm going to win by ippon. Or I'm going to go spar and roll, and I'm going to get this guy in some chokes and submit them. I'm going to footlock them and trying to keep up with the latest technology and what's ever trending. It has nothing to do with any of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting to me. And that you said earlier before we started, you wanted to train in Kempo karate, and you're trying to find a place that does that.
Yeah.
So you'll move to wherever you need to go. When I got accepted to the instructor's training in Torrance, I didn't care if it was in Ohio or Texas. I was taking my one-way ticket to wherever that was going to be.
Yeah.
So my time now, I have to go to California because there's an expression of Nishio Sensei in California, or I'm on my way to Tokyo.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to learn as much as I can while I still can.
I love that. So over your years in the martial arts, all the styles you studied, all the instructors you trained with, is there one philosophy that's just at the top of your list that's super important to you?
One philosophy?
Yeah.
Man, I think I got into it because what makes me so interesting, because Shishiya Sensei was the first instructor that ever made me cry on the mat, like grown man crying.
Wow.
And it was, he was showing me the curriculum of, I can tell you exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. So if you start to learn Iaido, mm-hmm. in all the different, this is the martial art where you draw the sword and then you put the sword back in. So it's like you make a couple cuts and you kill the invisible person.
Yeah.
And it's an awareness art. It's very quick, and you're learning how to handle the sword, and there's a lot to say about that. And then you're using a real sword. That's a whole nother deal, because that's in itself. That's like now you're holding a live blade. The gun is loaded. No more fake.
Yeah.
So there's an energy that comes with and spirit that comes with a real blade. And I held 3 Shinkens in Japan.
Wow.
And it got the story, and it's amazing. So here we are. We have the wooden sword, the boken, and in all the different styles of Iaido, the first kata is the shohato, which is the house. It's essentially teaching you how to handle the sword, how to draw, how to cut, and then how to bring it back into the holster. Mm-hmm. And they all follow the same thing. A lot of the Iaido styles are starting from the knees, and you essentially draw and you cut the person in half, or you cut their head off right away.
Right.
The person that's in front of you. So that's the killing sword.
Yeah.
So Shishiya Sensei, he's kind of like maybe 6 feet in front of me. We're on our knees, and he's like, "You know how to do shohato?" And I said, "Yes, I know how to do shohato from the standing, but I can do it from the knees here." So we go to do shohato, and he says, "Go." And Shishiya Sensei could speak English, which was very challenging for me because all the Aikido that I was learning in Tokyo, everything was in Japanese. So I was having a very difficult time learning the art, which is, a different martial art itself.
Right.
So then he goes to cut, and he does the first cut. He draws, and he stops at my shoulder and pauses. So it's at the top of my shoulder. It could have been my throat. It could have been at it, but he stopped right there, and he said, "Draw." And then I said, "She says, I can't draw." And then he just looked at me and he says, "I know you can't draw." So he gave me an opportunity to live right there. Like if this was a real situation, he would have cut me in half. He would have killed me, but he didn't. And he put me in a situation where I can't even draw the sword.
Wow.
So that was my first experience in that one lesson with giving somebody an opportunity to rethink their actions. So then he said, okay, now we're going to do some like Aikido. And he showed me maybe 3 or 4 things. But each move, like if it was a competitive situation, he had already taken the initiative. My arm is already crossed. My elbow capsule is already across my center, which is universally in combatives. If you can cross somebody's arm across the center, you have the whole angle. So it doesn't matter what martial art you're practicing. That approach, that opening for you to do things is amazing. Arm drags, catching the elbow if there's something in their hand, striking arts, Kendo, it's all there. So I saw that universal bridge. And again, at every move that we would take, like maybe there's like 3 moves within the move of the technique. He kept, if he had a sword in his hand, a jo or a strike, he kept giving me an opportunity to rethink my actions. Like that, he's already taken the initiative here in each sequence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So at the very end, he did I can't remember the technique, but it was like a shoanagi, like where a guy grabs a wrist, you do the 4-corner throw.
Mm-hmm.
But we were doing it with the sword in the hand.
Okay.
And he's leading me with the sword, and I grab his wrist, and he's just leading the sword, and then he's cutting, and the cuts, he could have cut my body. He could have the first step, he could have cut my chest, my stomach right there, but it's the back of the sword. You have to see it. But essentially, he had 3 or 4 movements. Each movement, he could have cut me, and then he just sent me on my way. And it basically represents, because in every technique in Nishio Sensei's curriculum, there are themes. Mm-hmm. And there are themes of, I can kill you or I can let you live. And to have that choice in your technique is very powerful. Because in Budo, and the way that modern Budo, it's all about, getting the ippon. Mm-hmm. And in Aikido, there's no sport. And when you pick up a live blade, when you pick up a stick and you can smash somebody's face with it, but you choose to stop right at their chin, it's like it's the timing of the attack. So to me, watching Budo now, watching techniques, watching martial arts, it's how late in the game are they? Okay, the person grabs you, you do this technique, you're already late. Your person punches, you block, you punch, you're already late. You see these beautiful knockouts in MMA and UFC where they both punch at the same time. One person ducks, the other person doesn't. Okay, that's another timing attack. Yeah. And then you have what's before that. So when you practice Kendo, it happens so fast. You have to be on the offense, taking the initiative, learning about pressure, psychological, and then hitting the timing fast. And then there's that Aikido where it's like right when they think to attack, the fist, the finger, the knife, the sword, the jo is already there, and you've taken their intentions mentally. That's what I want to practice. Because in that moment, you have the choice to continue, stop them cold, and then make people rethink, wow, it's already over.
Yeah.
Right when the sword goes up, you already made it. So there's connection there. There's overlapping of different budos and techniques and things that I've learned throughout the 30 years. But in those types of training, that's where it all makes sense. There's principles here. Mm-hmm. There's invisible theory that Rickson was talking about. There's timing of attack. And you know what? I can do this until I'm 90 years old.
Yeah.
So that's exciting to me. Okay. But that's very, very rare to be in a tatami in a mat space where people are wanting to practice this, let alone know even what you're talking about.
That's awesome. All right. I got a few fun questions we use to wrap up the show. Let's say you decided you were going to step into the octagon and fight in the UFC. What's your walk-up music going to be? What song's playing as you're taking that walk into the cage?
Well, first, I'd always hope that I was the promoter of the event, not the fighter. My walkout song is an 80s song from the movie Rad. Oh, so awesome. Send Me an Angel. Send Me an Angel.
That is awesome. I actually have the one of my favorite books written by Bill Allen. I have an autographed copy of his book, My Rad Life.
My Rad. Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm definitely Crew Jones.
That's awesome.
My character in life.
That is really cool.
When you start reading my stuff, you start saying, "Man, you did this, you did that." I'm just, man, you got to go for it.
You were definitely the first person that's ever said that song, and I love it because that's one of my favorite movies. So, All right. Who are 3, 4, 5 names you'd put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
Okay. Yeah. Wow. 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 Well, this is just like everything. So you have so Dr. Kano Sensei,
Yep.
founder of Judo or reformer of Judo. He has to be one of the top.
Yep.
And then how influential and in the timing of the Japanese culture, how it changed and modernized. So then all the Kuru arts and the other martial arts from Okinawa. Yeah. So Dr. Kano, boom.
Okay.
Just being a big fan of Jiu-Jitsu, Rickson Gracie is definitely up there.
Nice. Yep.
For his fighting, like being a fighting champion for the Gracie family, his techniques, his goodwill as a in humanity, and just his teaching methodology is just, we're going to say, well, no, he'll say, I'm not the best teacher, but people that he puts as like better than him, they're watching him. They're watching Rickson.
Yeah.
So he's humble to say, not to say that, but he's definitely number 2. Did I get 2 more? Wow. Yep. I'll say Nishio Sensei. No, this is he's already passed away. But if people will take the time to look at Nishio Sensei's approach to Budo and what he was going for and how he was able to synthesize Aikido, the sword, and he's someone that did not study Kendo. Like he said, Kendo is stick fighting. That's not real sword fighting. So that's a very, very powerful statement. But it's all there. That path is there. And one more. I don't know. I would like to say that it's to be defined. Like let the newer generation come up with something, but it'll be harder.
Nice.
Okay. I don't know what the fourth one will be, but they're definitely my they're who are on my wall in my dojo, my home dojo.
Yeah.
There's Helio Gracie, Dr. Kano, and Nishio Sensei, and then of course Rickson is like on my gi.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Now this one you can't pick one of your own. A favorite martial arts book.
Favorite martial arts book is Soul Sword. Soul Sword.
Okay, who wrote that one? I don't think I'm familiar with that one.
Yeah, this is a book you have to read. I just ordered it for my friend. His birthday's coming up.
I'm writing that down because I'm definitely going to look that up.
Sorry, it's called Soul Sword, The Way and Mind of the Zen Warrior.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Found it. I will add that to my list. I can't believe I've never heard of that one.
Yes.
Now, this one you may not have an answer for. To kind of 50-50 with my guess. Do you have a favorite martial arts video game? Did you ever get into gaming?
Well, I was a big fan of Street Fighter 2. So
nice. Okay. Yeah, that one's probably one of the most picked ones. Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and Tekken, I think, are the 3 most picked. So
yes, I learned how to play with Ryu. I was a teenager, and the older teenagers or young adults, they're like, well, this game you can learn how to. And the guy showed me how to do the techniques of the joystick for Ryu. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was pretty clever.
Okay, cool. All right. And how about a favorite martial arts TV show?
A TV show or like a series?
TV show series, either from like your childhood or one you currently watch. I mean, people pick anything from Kung Fu in the 70s, Sidekicks in the 80s, Walker, Texas Ranger, Power Rangers, Cobra Kai, Into the Badlands.
Well, we always said like the Bruce Lee movies were really popular. All those 80s movies, The Last Dragon, I loved all of that stuff. I was really into that. Some of the ninja movie crazes was fun, but like the recent, I get with the Shogun series that came out.
It was so good.
That was really good, and it was just it was really fun to be in Japan and see it, and read the history. It was just, to me, it's the historic connections I really want to know about.
Yeah,
and that's so my thing right now is I'm really trying to move through different katas. I got really far with Kendo. I was like, start working on my Nidan, and it's learning about the kata, writing about the kata, and what the original intent of what the founders or reformers were trying to, the principles. Okay. So this is something that you can do as well. And that, some people will say, I don't understand why you practice kata. And it's like, okay, well, one day you will, maybe you won't. That's okay.
Nice.
It's not for you.
So I got to ask, as a fan of Bruce Lee, have you watched the series Warrior, the newer one that his daughter Shannon Lee put out?
No, I don't think I did. I like to think that I caught a lot of the documentaries over the years, like everything, reading his books. But
if you have Netflix, it's on there. Basically, the short version of the story is Bruce Lee had this idea for this TV show, back in the early 70s that he pitched called Warrior that was never made. And they ended up making Kung Fu, which was kind of similar. But Shannon found Bruce's original notes from that pitch, and she created Warrior, and it ran for 3 seasons. They're all on Netflix right now, and it's good. The story's good, the acting's good, the fighting's amazing.
So if you're a Bruce Lee fan, you might enjoy it.
That's great. I like to think ask if I can ask you a question.
Yeah, definitely.
So by the time Bruce Lee arrived to the United States in Seattle, he had only trained in Wing Chun for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
How much can you learn in 4 to 5 years and then come to another country that doesn't do what you're doing?
Yeah.
And then it makes sense that he would have to become like eclectic and take from different arts, different boxing and things like this. So to me, it's always like, how much exposure did he have to Wing Chun? And then what was he teaching in the 60s and the 70s before he died? And then that's the part, because I met Guru Denarasato.
Nice.
And I watched his classes and went out to dinner with him. And I was like around the Jiu guys. And it's really difficult to listen to them because I'm not part of that. And if I was, I would still think it'd be challenging to listen because it's too philosophical and it's you're trying to you get like into little camps of you're doing what Bruce Lee and the original Kendo ideas versus the concepts. So then you have like what happened after his passing and what do we have today? So it looked like a lot of things came from like Indonesia, Filipino martial arts, and then you have, if I typed in Jeet Kune Do today, you would have something that kind of looks like Thai boxing, mixed martial arts, cultural martial arts blend. Like, who is the authority today? And how much did Bruce Lee initially learn of Wing Chun? And then his writings and his ideas, and where did they come from? That needs to be, there has to be something like that. Like an honest, for someone like me, I would love to know more about that. And I feel like a lot of people are dying off or, times have changed, but you'll never get the answer. But I went to Japan and I picked up brand new I didn't get that far in Kendo. and I was there for 4 years. And I'm not going to compare myself to Bruce Lee, but it's hard to in 4 years pick up and say you're a master of Wing Chun.
Yeah. You might enjoy going back my episode number 6, almost 5 years ago. I was lucky enough to interview James DeMille, who was one of Bruce's original students in Seattle before he started doing Jeet Kune Do. I got lucky enough to interview him about 4 months before he passed away. So some good stories in there and some good information. I think it's a really good interview and you might enjoy it.
I will. Thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So final question. Now this one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie, but any movie you've ever seen in your life, favorite movie fight scene? Is there just one fight scene that jumps out?
Yeah. So Sammo Hung, Wheels on Wheels.
Nice. Love Sammo.
Yeah. Benny the Jet and Sammo Hung.
Yep.
Or maybe like Benny the Jet and Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
That probably Jackie Chan and Benny the Jet.
Yeah.
You put them in a movie fight scene, you got gold.
I got to interview Benny and we talked about that fight. So that was fun. And I'd love to get Jackie on the show. I'd love to get Sammo on the show. Obviously there's some dream guests, but a lot of people pick that fight between Benny and Jackie. That seems to be one of the gold standards. So that's cool. All right, nothing to do with martial arts, but I got to ask because I read that you mentioned it a little bit that you're a surfer. I'm just kind of curious how you think surfing and martial arts kind of go together. Because I've had a few people that I've talked about, like Mark Dacascos, was a big surfer and stuff. A few people that were big surfers and also did martial arts, and it seems like it's kind of for a lot of people, it's like a similar type lifestyle, similar outlook type thing. Just kind of curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So being with Rickson, we didn't spend time on the mats initially. And we would just get to know each other, driving from LA to San Diego for meetings. That's a long drive.
Yeah.
But we would along the way, we would check out the surf and see what the waves were up to. When you get to like San Clemente area, you can kind of cruise off. But surfing, that was something that I was, grew up in Philadelphia. I didn't have waves and things like that.
Right.
I wanted to. And I went, when I was in LA, anytime I had free, I would just sit on the beach. I was like, I would like to learn how to surf. So when in Jiu-Jitsu, you're connected. It's like the yellow pages. You can get like the internet now, I guess would be the reference.
Yeah.
There's so many different people that train and you get to know them. So we had in Hermosa Beach was Eddie Talbert, ET Surf. So he would take the afternoon class and he loved me because I was like his size and, I wasn't going to hurt anybody. So I told Eddie, I said, Eddie, I really want to learn how to surf. And he got me a book from his surf shop and he took a piece of paper in the locker room and he wrote down on a piece of paper, here's how the ocean works. And he's showing me about the wave currents and what to do and all this other stuff. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And then, you get your first surfboard and you just get out there and you start learning how to surf. And it's just like the classic Beach Boys movies or songs where it's, catch a wave and you're sitting on top of the world. It's a great feeling to catch your first wave. You'll never forget it.
That is cool.
And then I think I was young at the time. I was surfing in California My flexibility was there. I was everything. Everything was like so smooth, like my technique. So I do think that there's a connection there with the waves, the feel, being in the right place, not using your energy, trying to find the right spot. Different people that are really good at surfing, like how do they catch waves when there's so many people in the lineup? How they always seem to be knowing where to go. So there's something about that. And then being in the ocean, the energy that goes with it. So my wife and I are happy when we're near the beach, near the ocean. So cool. That's just something. So I know that that's where we're going to retire. We'll head towards the waves.
Nice. See, and I grew up as a huge surfing fan. Even when I lived in California, same as you, I'd skip work and go and sit and just, watch the ocean. But I was never a great swimmer, so I never had the guts to try surfing. But I grew up watching surfing movies and stuff. And of course, I didn't know this when I was younger, but now as an adult, there's people actually surf in the Great Lakes, like up in Duluth, Minnesota, Lake Superior. They have like the Great Lakes Surf Championship. And the funny part is like the best waves are in the winter. So they're out there between like November and March with full thermal bodysuits and icicles hanging off their eyelids and stuff and surfing. I'm like, wow, it's dedication.
I think that technology will change. There's a lot of funding now with creating artificial surf pools.
Yeah.
And there's concepts coming out of Australia, and they're going to be all over the United States. So cool. if you have a lake and there's funding and it's taken, you can turn a lake into an artificial surf lake.
Yep. I've looked at that one in Australia where that big like pump thing just goes up and down and creates wave. I'm like, that's really cool.
Yeah. We were just talking about this last night, my wife and I and a friend that was here, and we were talking about a surf club in Sao Paulo and how I would like to go there. And we were totally checking it out. And so it's like, it's not even in central Sao Paulo. It's more like northwest, hours away. But yeah, the technology is there.
That is cool. And that's actually another dream guest of mine is Kelly Slater. Because I know Kelly Slater studies Jiu-Jitsu and has for quite a while. He's another one I'd love to interview just because I grew up watching him surf, and to actually talk to him about martial arts would be kind of cool too. So yeah.
Keep it up. You can. We're never really far away from Kelly Slater when you're talking to a jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, before I let you go, is there anything I forgot to ask you, or we just want to be sure to get out there? And I will put links for everything when the episode comes out. But is there any last minute stuff we want to mention before we wrap it up?
No, I'm working a lot on projects here with instructionals. I just moved all my stuff, all my different websites to TonyPacenski.com.
Okay. Into
a platform where it's Jiu-Jitsu, a wrestling technique, Gunji and Taiho Jitsu, and I'm going to be releasing soon. That's currently editing is a Luta Livre submission grappling. So that's very popular in the United States and around the world.
Nice.
But I just want to keep that up. I have goals with Judo and Kendo, and of course eventually getting back into Aikido again and the Aido. So that's it. Tatami Air is going to be, I won't have to say much about that. 2026, it'll be everywhere.
Nice. I love it. Well, Tony, seriously, man, this has been so much fun. You have an amazing story. Seriously, I love it. I love what you're doing, and I love the passion for it. And I think the listeners are really going to enjoy this one also.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brian. It's been a pleasure to, you just said, well, what are we going to talk about? It's like, talk about your journey. I'm like, okay.
That's what we did, man. It worked out nice. And
yes.
Like I said, I think it was a great interview, and I think people will love it.
All right. Well, I hope that someone can listen and be inspired. And that's kind of what I try to do on the mats. Teach them what they need to learn versus what they want to learn. And then through the experience, they start to get inspired, no matter what the level they're at, just starting or been into it for over 10 years. That's always good.
Cool. Awesome. Well, continued success, and we will stay in touch.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brian.
Wrap up today's episode by taking your own training to the next level with Martial Theory by Steve Perlman, the book that's redefining martial arts thinking. Find Martial Theory on Amazon today. Join the worldwide movement at martialtheoryu.com, where you'll find Q&A sessions, live events, and direct guidance from Steve himself. Use code EverydayMA for 20% off for life. That's martialtheoryu.com, code EverydayMA. Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.